What's up, guys? So I kind of want to keep this intro short because, well, you already read the title. I picked up 20 credits a few weeks back, and a lot of them were really good, so my top coasters changed a lot. I won't be talking much about each coaster because I don't want to make this video too long because nobody will watch it, and I don't want to spend 5 hours on editing, so yeah, let's just jump in. 25 is Bizarro at Six Flags Great Adventure. It's been almost 2 years since I've been on this, but I remember it being very enjoyable. It slipped like 10 spots since my trip, but it's a great ride nonetheless. It's intense and decently smooth from what I remember, which is pretty surprising considering the fact it was the first floorless coaster. Favorite elements are the drop, the cobra roll, some of the fast turns this ride features. Let's move on to the next coaster. 24 is Phobia Fear Coaster at Lake Compound, Super Premier Ride Skyrocket 2. This ride is short, but it finds a spot on here for the ejector or lateral death drop. The ejector airtime and laterals on the biggest drop of this ride is crazy. You get laterals when you're out of your seat and it's a crazy feeling. This is one of the best drops I've ever been on, but the rest of the ride is great too. The Heartline roll has hang time obviously, and every place where the track is banked has great laterals. Next up, another Premier Rides coaster, so let's move on. Flight of Fear at Kingsdown makes its way into the list at number 23. I wasn't expecting much from Flight of Fear, but I was pleasantly surprised. I've only been on 2 indoor coasters, unless you count the Nickelodeon Universe coasters, but I love indoor coasters. Flight of Fear is definitely the superior of the two, the other being Skull Mountain. The launch is good, as is the theming, and there are some pretty intense moments. My only nitpick is the fact that the limited course literally stops you completely. Other than that, I enjoyed my one ride on Flight of Fear, and I wish I got some more. 22 is the famous Kona Cyclone. My expectations were really low before I rode this, and they were blown away. I only got one ride, but this coaster is really good, and everyone should out to Brooklyn to ride it. The laterals are some of, if not the best I've ever felt on a roller coaster, and it had some good airtime pops. Not to mention the great view of the water from the top of the lift hill, and it wasn't even rough for a 20s wooden coaster. This ride is a classic and it's just an all-around fantastic experience. 21 is Jersey Devil. If you watch my review of this RMC Raptor, you could tell I was kind of let down. It might have just been where I was sitting, but it was kind of close to the front. And people say if you sit near the front, it's good, so I don't even know. If I had to say one thing about this roller coaster, it's that its pacing is literally so garbage, dude. I mean, what the hell? Every time I saw it run, it almost valleyed, I swear. But the ride is still good. There's some okay forces in the color scheme, and the location of this ride is super cool. My favorite element was probably the Raven Dive or the stall. But yeah, though this ride disappointed me, it's still a great ride. We've made it to the top 20, and topping it off is Cedar Point's Wing Coaster, Gatekeeper. This ride is super underrated, and I enjoyed my 2 rides on it. The location is great, let me just say. The forces aren't insane, but they're definitely there, and they do their job well. And there was even some floater airtime. The inversions are great too, and the drop is awesome. I think this ride gets looked down on because Raptor is just a short walk away, but I really like this ride and it goes underappreciated. 19 is Sandy's Blasting Bronco, and this little ride packs a punch. The best part of the ride is that super powerful launch. The inversions provide whip and good hang time, and I love the fact that you can experience it all backwards. I also love how you can see Manhattan from out the window. There isn't much to talk about with this tiny ride, so let's move on to the next one. Staying at Nickelodeon Universe, 18 is TMMT Shellraiser, which features the world's steepest drop. Speaking of that drop, it's awesome. It has great ejector airtime and an awesome view. The launch is also really good, I wasn't expecting much from it. The inversions are intense also. Great and really long ride overall, but it's a little rough, especially in the front. Our second wooden coaster on this list is Twister at Nobles, which comes in at number 17. I had my expectations pretty high for this ride and exceeded them. This is a great ride. I got 2 rides, front and back. I had a ton of room in both of them. I'm talking like 5 or 6 inches, so I got some standing airtime, even though there was only a couple moments of floater. But airtime isn't really this ride's strong suit, it's the laterals. Almost every turn feels like a wild mouse, I swear. This ride is just awesome and I hope to get back on it soon. Staying at Nobles, number 16 is Phoenix. I was kind of disappointed with this ride since it won Best Wooden Coaster multiple times. I thought I would get ejector, but I just got mediocre to strong floater. The airtime was really cool though, because there's basically no restraint, which is awesome. So this ride is great even though it's really overrated. Going into the top 15, we have Boulder at Lake Compounds. This ride is running so bad these past 2 seasons, there isn't even that much airtime. The laterals are stronger than the airtime actually. But the setting is awesome since you are literally on the side of a mountain, and it feels like this coaster is abandoned because of all the plants going through the track. I need to get a night ride on this one though, because the last night ride I had was in 2016, so maybe that'll make me move it up. Number 14 is a pretty similar ride to Boulder Dash, and it's the Beast at Kings Island. This ride is kind of forceless on its hills, so don't go expecting an airtime machine, but rather a roller coaster based on location, laterals, and speed. It feels like this ride goes crazy fast, and I couldn't even imagine it without the trims. The helix is absolutely crazy, and feels like Twister's helix on steroids. The ride can get a bit rough though, so sit in the front or in the middle of a car. Try the back seat too though. I also got a night ride on this one, and it was absolutely crazy. I love this ride. Coming in at 13 is Raptor at Cedar Point. Surprisingly, this ride didn't actually drop that much, and I don't even know how, to be honest. This ride is super intense and is really whippy. It's also glass smooth for an old B&M, which was great. The finale is awesome, and it's really disorienting, which is my favorite part of the ride. Every element on this ride is great. Yes, I even enjoyed the terrible transition into the brakes. I really liked both of my rides on this invert, and I really like this ride. Alright, number 12 is a hot take, but it's El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This ride was actually in my top 3 before my 2020 rides, but my 2020 rides were so painful, and all the valleys and turns were so rough. The turnaround is actually one of the worst elements I've ever experienced on a roller coaster. Don't get me wrong though, the drop is still awesome, as is the airtime, but there's really only 4 good elements, so I unfortunately can't put this any higher. 11 was the ride I was most intrigued by for my trip this year. It's Banshee at Kings Island. I was intrigued because a lot of people said this ride was rough and it hurt, and it was just a mediocre ride. But I also hear that it was really good, so it was interesting to see what I thought. And guys, this ride is elite. It is absolutely amazing. The drop is one of the best I've been on. All the inversions are great, especially the loops, the principal knot, and the inline twist. And every single valley on this ride has crazy positive Gs, especially the helixes. This ride isn't rough. There might have been a little bit of a rattle, but it didn't bother me. I thought Orion was rougher, to be honest. I really wish I could put this ride in my top 10, but I just can't because of the coaster that's next on this list, but I might be able to slide in at some point because the next one has been recently dropping my rankings. But this is definitely the best invert I've ridden. Elite ride, guys. We've made it into the top 10, and to start off we have Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. I think it was like 2 weeks ago that this ride was a couple spots higher, but this ride is just so inconsistent with its pacing. That being said though, every ride I get on this is awesome, even if it's running like garbage. Every hill has airtime, yes, all of them. This ride always has hang time and is very aggressive. Also, you can never go wrong with that great first drop. There's also an ejector death on the ride, but I won't spoil it for you guys so you get caught off guard. I've been riding this ever since it opened, and I'm so glad it's at my home park. Great ride. Coming in at number 9 is Millennium Force, my first and only Giga I've ridden, because the ride isn't a Giga. But anyways, since they were only filling half the train when I was riding, I don't think I got good rides on this one. I only got one moment of airtime, which is a speed hill, so if I got a full train, then I think I'd like it more. But this ride is awesome nonetheless. I really love when a coaster is good in pacing, and it has speed all the way through, and William absolutely nails that. Sitting in the front row is just so fast and it's insane. I got 14 rides on this, and I'm glad because I got a good feel for it, and I really like this ride. Number 8 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. So I thought this ride's biggest strength would be the airtime. Well, the airtime is awesome, the laterals were really the biggest strength for me. I mean, this ride is just so aggressive, which I can really appreciate. And also the drop surprised me in the back. It was actually really good. And don't let the Beast night rides overshadow these night rides, because it feels like you're driving a car with your lights off and you have absolutely no control and you have no idea where you're going. This ride's airtime is usually just floater to weak projector. My only complaint is that the restraints just automatically come down always, so you gotta hold it up, but it's not a big deal. I love this ride, and also the shed is underrated. Number 7 is the last ride on this list from my home park, and it's actually Superman the Ride. I honestly have no complaints for this ride. I actually like the restraints now because it's easy to get room, and if you just hold them up, then you get airtime on every hill. Also, the ejector death throw on this ride is really insane. It feels like El Toro. The positives on this ride are great too. I moved this ride up since the park reopened this year because I've really learned to appreciate this elite roller coaster. My favorite roller coaster is number 6, and it's Kingda Ka. I really wish I could put this higher, but the rides in my top 5 were just a bit better than Kingda Ka. The main 2 elements of this ride are some of my favorites anywhere. I mean, that launch is just insane. The roughness or restraints don't bother me either. I love the theme of this ride too. I don't have any complaints about this ride other than the fact that it isn't at my home park. This ride is so underrated and I love it so much, dude. We've made it to the top 5, and the first coaster is Orion at Kings Island. This ride blew away my expectations. I always make fun of this ride for not being a Giga, but I mean this ride is just incredible. The drop is one of, if not the best I've ever been on, It has ejector and just lasts forever. The next two elements, the wave turn and the turnaround, are probably the worst on the ride, but are still really great actually. The speed hill has sustained full ejector airtime. The big camelback has some good floater. The helix has great laterals and positive Gs. And the twisted airtime hill has amazing ejector airtime, as does the pop into the final brakes. I mean, if you don't like this ride, then just shut up. My only complaint is that this ride gives you a headache, but it didn't take away from the ride too much. I really love this coaster. Magnum XL200 maintains its number 4 spot after all the switching around in my top 10. I used to prefer Kingda Ka more than this ride, but this ride has a lot more good elements, even though Ka's are better. But this ride is literally crazy. The ejector is amazing, the transitions are so chaotic, the drop is awesome, and the turnaround feels downright unsafe. This ride takes a sense that you're out of control from Mystic Timbers, gives it crazy ejector, makes it a hyper, and mixes it with a mine train, and I absolutely love it. Also, don't complain about the roughness, because it just makes the ride crazier in my opinion. Number 3, Diamondback at Kings Island. This is a coaster that I rode and I questioned if it was my number 1 coaster. It's just that good. I got over 10 rides on this and I can say that this ride is ultra elite. This ride offers either strong floater to ejector airtime. The positive Gs are absolutely incredible, and the first drop is easily one of the best ever. I mean, this is just a perfect ride pretty much. My only complaint is after the mid-course, if you're sitting in the front half of the train, you don't get any airtime, but that's not really a huge deal. Something that I thought was funny is that this ride is basically have the same vibe as Maverick. Like, this sign is literally the same as Maverick's, and with the station, it's the same thing. But anyway, I love everything about this ride. Incredible roller coaster. My top 2 remained the same after this trip like I expected, although Diamondback came close to changing that. Number 2 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. If RMC is your favorite manufacturer, then this is probably the ride for you. It's got everything that RMC makes, but makes it twice as big. Amazing first drop, check. Giant ejector airtime hills, check. Outer banks, check. 0G rolls, check. Overbank and wave turns, check. I mean, what's not to love? There's airtime all over the place. It's just a non-stop ride. When you hit the brake run, you're almost out of breath from what just happened. This ride is so long too, and I think that's what it puts over Diamondback for me. But yeah, this ride is just incredible, and it still doesn't beat my number 1 spot. My number 1 spot is still Maverick at Cedar Point. I mean, this ride is just too good. Ejector airtime, positive Gs, fast transitions, inversions, incredible launch, single dives. I mean, I couldn't imagine coaster better, until I ride Kona or Jamaica. But yeah, this video has gone long enough. And if you're wondering where Top Flow Dragster was, I didn't ride it because it was closed, but yeah. If you're still here, comment Orion is in Giga down below. Thanks for watching, guys.